Musashi was an ugly, disgusting orphan who was hated by everyone in town. However, everything changes when he trains to become the strongest demon slayer and cracks everyone. The story opens up in a world that once belonged to humans, but after the sudden appearance of demons, that rule came to an end. To fight against these demons, a group of strong warriors known as Bushi took charge. However, several years later, their history has been altered and people now worship the demons, wishing to become miners so they can harvest rocks for them. In this new world ruled by demons, Musashi lived a difficult life. He was an orphan who was ostracized by his relatives and had no place to go until he came across Kojiro, a boy his age who taught Musashi the basics of swordsmanship. However, Kojiro came from a family of Bushi, and through his father, Musashi learned the actual truth about them. This revelation inspired him to dream of becoming a Bushi, so he can free the world from demons. A few years have passed since then, and Musashi now works as a miner to blend in with others who think he's the strongest miner they've ever seen. However, Musashi secretly hates his life and wishes he could announce his dream of being a Bushi. After finishing his work, he heads out of the town and pays a visit to Kojiro, who lives in an upgraded version of a doghouse. There, he shows off his enhanced mining tool to Kojiro and reminds him of their dream to form a Bushi band. But to his surprise, Kojiro refuses, saying that his father was delusional and is the reason they are treated like trash. This annoys Musashi and he leaves, promising to show Kojiro just how serious he is. Later that day, when Kojiro goes to town, he gets insulted by people for carrying a sword. But Kojiro tolerates it, knowing that this is exactly what he's trying to protect Musashi from. The next morning, Musashi, along with his classmates, are led to a gate behind which the demon rulers await. While his other classmates are pumped to meet the demon masters, Musashi plans on slaying them, but before he enters, all his belongings, including the red pickaxe, are taken away from Musashi. As soon as the gate opens, everyone witnesses one of the demons eating a miner alive, which freaks everyone out except for Musashi, who was already prepared for this. At this, he decides to finally slay some demons, only to remember that his pickaxe was taken away from him. Fortunately, he grabs a pickaxe from the ground, but its dull blade fails in battle and Musashi gets beaten down to a pulp. Still, he refuses to give up and continues trying to fight back. Ultimately, the demon gets a hold of him and prepares to devour Musashi when out of nowhere, Kojiro appears on his whip and slams it on the demon's head. He then returns Musashi's red pickaxe to him, allowing him to slash the demon in half and shock everyone. This makes the other demons come at them, but both Kojiro and Musashi fight together and easily defeat all of them. Once they are done, Kojiro finally agrees to become his Bushi partner when, out of nowhere, a wave of energy shoots out of the mountains, which usually means the appearance of a Kishin, the most powerful kind of demon. Nevertheless, the two of them continue slaying the smaller ones and make their way to the Kishin. Along the way, Musashi mentions how they will finally make their dream come true, but Kojiro doesn't seem all that excited about it. Although he wants to leave the town, the idea of Bushi being heroes doesn't resonate with him. Musashi replies by telling Kojiro that he will get it once he gets into the Bushi stuff. Eventually, they arrive at the place where the Kishin is present, who looks more like an angry bird than a demon boss. Nevertheless, Musashi slays it just like the others, making Kojiro wonder if it was really that easy. To their surprise, the Kishin manages to heal itself, making Musashi question how he's supposed to beat that thing. Before long, the people from before come running with some bricks for the demon. As soon as the Kishin eats some of it, he transforms into a completely different being, several times bigger than his last form. Everyone starts to worship him at once, commenting on how he has assumed his true form after 5 years. Kojiro, who was tossed aside during the transformation, realizes that Musashi has fainted. Suddenly, the Kishin appears right in front of Kojiro and grabs his sword. Kojiro is told by the workers that Kishin eat swords, so it's better to let go. However, he refuses, and no matter how much he's tossed around and thrown into the mountain, Kojiro keeps his grip firm. Witnessing this, the workers start to question his sanity while Kojiro, who is still holding onto the sword, remembers the time when he hated it and regretted being a Bushi. To make him feel better, his father apologized for the stuff he had suffered because of his Bushi blood. But at the same time, he pressed the point that Bushi were the only ones who fought when everyone else had cast their pride aside. This made Kojiro realize that a sword is a Bushi's pride, and he was told not to lose it by his father. After struggling for what felt like an eternity, Kojiro finally loses grip of his sword, which then gets consumed by Kishin. Seeing this, Musashi charges towards the Kishin, and after landing on his body, he begins climbing upwards. After reaching what seems to be the correct spot, he starts hitting it with his weapon. When he gets told by others not to disturb the Kishin's meal, Musashi gets even more furious and lands a critical hit, causing the Kishin to scream in pain. Enraged, Kishin starts hitting the same spot, trying to eliminate Musashi, but all he's doing is damaging his own body. Ultimately, he damages it enough for Musashi to break the Kishin's stomach open. Sadly, he then loses his footing and ends up falling into its stomach acid. Just when everyone thought it was over, Musashi walks out of Kishin's body with Kojiro's sword in hand, farming an unprecedented amount of aura. He then gives it back to Kojiro, telling him that he's aware of how much it matters to him. This incident makes Kojiro remember the duty of a Bushi, and he finally gets motivated to become the strongest Bushi band with Musashi by his side. With the giant Kishin defeated, Musashi says that it's their first big step toward making their dream come true. Suddenly, the people on the watchtower mention how a giant band of Bushi is attacking them. To take a closer look, the two of them climb the watchtower and witness a castle-like structure heading towards them. Several bushes emerge from the castle, and using their swords, they break the shield protecting the demons. After that, they charge the Kishin and use the powers of their swords to fly towards it. While it's happening, a Bushi walks up to the two of them, saying that it's dangerous for younglings like them to be around. Annoyed, Musashi mentions that he's the one who cut open Kishin's belly, causing the Bushi to laugh and ask if he really believes that's enough to defeat it. Their conversation gets interrupted when Kishin manages to revive itself and stand back up. Moreover, it even starts shooting fire everywhere, which prompts Kojiro to get back and advise Musashi to do the same. However, Kojiro is frustrated over the fact that his achievement is going to be stolen by other Bushes, and reminds Kojiro that this Kishin is supposed to be the first step to making their dream come true. To start things off, Musashi begins cutting down the smaller demons, and during that, the Bushi squad members discuss how Musashi has a wild manner of fighting with some proper techniques mixed in between. Soon after, the captain of Bushi, Naotora, returns and gets told by his comrades that he's exposing himself too much. Furthermore, he gets advised not to evacuate the people, as they are just farmers who despise them. But Naotora replies by saying that it's their job as Bushi bands are supposed to take the world back from demons. He then wonders if Musashi has something he's risking his life for, and orders his team to prepare the crane wings. After dealing with the small fries, Musashi heads towards the Kishin while Kojiro, who's witnessing all this, regrets not being able to grow a pair. Musashi once again deals some damage, but it just keeps healing its body. Just then, a rope wraps around him and takes him to the top of the mountain, where Naotora welcomes him to their camp. Musashi recognizes him as the guy from before and questions him about the reason they are trying to stop him. He further mentions that the Kishin is going to be his first achievement, causing Naotora to say that they can't just let a hot-headed idiot run out onto the battlefield. When Musashi continues to argue, Naotora asks about how he's going to single-handedly eliminate the Kishin, and shows him just how many Bushi it takes to bring one down. Naotora continues by telling Musashi that he hasn't fought or thought enough about it, and advises him to give up. For a moment, Musashi figures that he might be right, but even then, Musashi believes that if he doesn't do it now, he might regret it later. With that, he manages to break himself free and runs away while Naotora decides not to intervene. As if Musashi got something to risk his life for, then he's definitely a Bushi. At the same time, the others prepare the crane wings move. But before they get the chance to use it, Musashi strikes the mountain above using his weapon, breaking the edge and sending rubble towards the bushes, holding the Kishin's leg. His actions allow the Kishin to break free and dodge the crane wing's attack. However, this works perfectly well for Musashi as this allows him to charge the Kishin. Concurrently, Kojiro tells Musashi to go for its horn on its navel, and listening to his advice, Musashi lands on Kishin's head and swings his weapon to break its horn. Although he manages to break something, that thing turns out to be his own weapon. Now having nothing to defend himself with, the Kishin prepares to shoot fire at him. But before that happens, Naotora appears before him and cuts Kishin's horn in one move. Once the Kishin's dealt with, Naotora apologizes for stealing Musashi's first big step. After that, the Kishin's body breaks apart into several parts, allowing all the bushes to absorb its powers. Seeing the bushes celebrate, Kojiro mentions how it feels similar, and Musashi realizes that it's just like the art on the scroll about bushes. Hearing this, Kojiro is brought to tears as everything his dad told him turned out to be the truth. Following that, the demon worshippers are tied up, and they mock the Kishins for spouting the same stuff for 150 years, but not accomplishing anything. Moreover, he tells Naotora not to drag everyone down for the sake of some impossible dream. Naotora replies by saying that they want a future without demons, and that's why they dream of the impossible. He adds by asking the demon worshippers if they don't want their kids to look at the blue sky without fear, leaving them no choice but to shut up. Lastly, he promises to make the dream come true and make a world free of the monsters that took control 150 years ago. Afterward, Kojiro formally introduces himself and Musashi to Naotora, who once again apologizes for stealing their achievement. But Kojiro says that they are in no position to complain, to which Naotora's comrades agree, telling Musashi that the captain saved his life, adding fuel to his anger. Seeing how happy everyone is, Musashi figures that it's better to hide his feelings for now. Just as he's about to walk away, Naotora stops him and lets Musashi know that while he's a weakling now, he might catch up to him by working hard. When everyone else starts agreeing with him, Musashi finally loses his cool and yells at Naotora, telling him to stop acting so mighty, and reveals that he's super pissed over getting his first elimination stolen. Some of the bushes start to admire his weirdness, and Naotora figures that it must have taken guts to come out clean, letting Musashi know that he likes people with guts. After that, he gives Musashi a crystal-like thing, saying that it's a consolation prize for getting his first elimination stolen. That night, Musashi continues to stress over what happened and tries throwing away the prize, but stops after taking a closer look and realizing that it's a kaleidoscope. This makes Kojiro realize that he has seen something similar before and whips out the trusty scroll. In that scroll, there seems to be a Bushi using the same tool. After focusing more on it, Musashi realizes that the pattern inside the kaleidoscope is similar to the demon's picture on the scroll. This makes him figure that it must be a tool that lets him find some thick baddies, and occasionally some demons as well. Now curious, they decide to read the text written in the scroll as well, which helps them learn that there are hundreds of Kishins present in the world. The scroll also predicts that once the dream is fulfilled, the nation will be healed, the divine treasures will return to the top bushes who slay the top Kishin, and when that happens, the land will be unified. The person responsible for the unification will reign as the new king. Elsewhere, Naotora, who is still in town, gets approached by Musashi, who asks if he wants to reunite the country. When Naotora agrees, Musashi says that no one in 150 years has been able to do this, which is why he's going to be the one to accomplish this feat. The next morning, Kojiro and Musashi prepare to finally leave the town and are seen off by Musashi's classmates. After putting some distance between them and their hometown, Musashi realizes that they spent their whole lives in such a tiny place. Moreover, he figures that if Kojiro or his father hadn't taught him swordsmanship, he would probably still be digging up rocks. Elsewhere, a dangerously fine cat girl sits by the river, soaking her toes in water. Along the way, Musashi suggests that they bag their first elimination correctly this time. During their first night, they believe that there won't be any fighting between them. But as the days pass and their struggles continue to intensify, the two of them eventually run out of food, and Musashi puts the blame on Kojiro for not packing enough. Annoyed, he mocks Musashi for leaving all the preparation to him and calls him a sheltered princess. Furthermore, Kojiro mentions that he has powers that Musashi doesn't have, and that these powers turn out to be the power of self-sufficiency. After catching a bunch of fish by himself, he teases Musashi for not catching any. This angers Musashi, and he decides to catch just as many as Kojiro. But once Musashi leaves, Kojiro regrets saying all that as Musashi tries harder than anyone when it comes to demon hunting. Similarly, Musashi fails to catch any fish and makes up his mind not to fight anyone. To apologize, he heads back to Kojiro, only to find him lying on the ground with a sword wound on his face. Just then, the same girl from before appears behind Musashi and throws him onto the ground. She then sits on top of him, telling Musashi to hand over all his valuables. After realizing that she's the one who hurt Kojiro, Musashi picks her up and tries slamming her down, but she manages to regain her footing. Following that, she comes at him again, but this time, Musashi grabs her wrist and picks her up, letting her know that she's pretty light and little for him. But this allows her to put Musashi in a headlock and slam him onto the ground, but even this move fails to work against him. Furthermore, fighting against her makes Musashi wonder how she defeated Kojiro when, out of nowhere, the girl begins sweet-talking Musashi, while revealing her eye-catching goodies. Moreover, she tells Musashi that she wouldn't mind getting down and dirty with him. But just as Musashi tries coping a feel, that girl takes out her dagger, only to get thrown away once again. Musashi then mocks Kojiro for being hopelessly down bad and tells the girl that her little trick won't work on him. Seeing that nothing is working on Musashi, she pulls out her secret weapon. But before getting a chance to use it, she hears the sound of a horn, prompting her to retreat on their bike, leaving the two no choice but to follow her. Sometime later, that girl, Tsugumi, appears before her Bushi captain and informs him that she managed to steal the bike from those Bushi just as he instructed. Upon hearing that, he praises her for doing a good job and hugs her while Tsugumi requests to be given her next orders. The captain, named Hideo, reminds her that their job is to hunt demons so they can reunite the nation, to which Tsugumi agrees. Meanwhile, Those two dash towards the Bushi camp while devouring fish and realize that now Tora's band had a similar-looking fortress as well. After heading in, the two of them wander around and eventually run into Tsugumi. When they accuse her of stealing their bike, Tsugumi mentions that she only borrowed it and asks them to follow her. After following her to the balcony, Musashi notices the town that's present inside the fortress. Tsugumi lets him know that it's basically a castle that can travel, and when Musashi asks her to elaborate, she says that Kishin pops up all around the country, and Bushi bands track and hunt them down. It's all possible thanks to the people living in the town, including the retainers, weapon craftsmen, farmers, medics, and others. People have been living like this for centuries, and have now become a giant family that fights together. While roaming around the town, a few kids come up to Tsugumi, asking her to help them practice. Seeing her play with the kids reminds Kojiro and Musashi of their childhood. After some time, she asks Kojiro to take over, and while he plays, Tsugumi informs Musashi that while the Bushi band is like a big family, she doesn't have any blood relatives. Talking about this reminds Tsugumi of her elder sister, who used to say that they fight to protect those weaker than them. But everyone she was related to lost their lives, and Musashi lets her know that this means the two of them are alike. After that, it's time for Musashi to take over. And simultaneously, Hideo turns up, glad that they are getting along. That night, he invites them for dinner and serves delicacies their peasant eyes have never seen. He then compliments them for having such a fine-looking bike and figures that they must be first-rate Bushi. Lastly, he invites them to fight alongside their band, saying that they can just split the Kitetsu afterward. But after realizing that they don't even know what Kitetsu is, Hideo deems them useless and orders Tsugumi to tie them up. Having no other choice, she gets up and takes out her weapon, using it to tie them up. When Musashi tells her to free them, Tsugumi apologizes while shaking in fear. While the two of them are locked inside a cell, Tsugumi is forced to call herself useless and stupid by Hideo. He then questions if she knows of the situation they are in, to which Tsugumi agrees, saying that their band is running low on members in Kaitetsu. To tackle this issue, Hideo has decided to call for total mobilization of the town the next time a demon attacks. Shocked, Tsugumi argues by saying that there are seniors and children who can't fight. But according to Hideo, a Bushi's job is to fight demons, and he believes that it should be a joy to fight to the last man. After Tsugumi fails to answer him, he presses her to tell him the argument she had, leaving her no choice but to act like a slave in front of him once again. After that, Tsugumi pays those two a visit, asking if they have some Kitetsu, but after realizing that they don't know what that is, Tsugumi says that it's the power that is released when a Kishin's body breaks apart. During their conversation, Musashi notices her weird behavior and tells Tsugumi to say what's on her mind. At first, she tries to resist but eventually reveals that she's against the total mobilization of the town. After blurting it out, she gets scared and runs away, thinking of how she's getting bad thoughts because of Musashi. Later that night, the two of them manage to escape by stealing the key, thanks to Kojiro's fishing skills. They then run to the rooftop and manage to find Kojiro's bike. But before they can make a move, Kojiro notices a giant Kishin heading their way. Meanwhile, Tsugumi runs into Hideo, who orders her to hand the townsfolk swords and tell them to defend their home against the demons. However, knowing that it's not the right thing to do, Tsugumi remembers Musashi's words and tells Hideo that she's against total mobilization. Hearing this, Hideo almost punches her but stops. He then starts crying while saying that his own adopted daughter is turning against him. Hideo further mentions that he has treated her as his own flesh this whole time, but she never understood his love. Ultimately, he grabs Tsugumi and leaves her hanging over the balcony railing, saying that she is of no use. Not only that, but he also orders her to get out of the castle, saying that she's no longer a Bushi member. Thinking of the wilderness, Tsugumi gets terrified, and Hideo promises to act like this never happened if she listens to his commands. Ultimately, Tsugumi is forced to agree with him and gets told by Hideo that she can't do anything without him, much less survive. This whole situation reminds Tsugumi of how her sister was treated the same way and believes that it must have been frustrating for her. Eventually, she makes up her mind to defy Hideo and protect the people of the town, but this results in his words popping up in her mind, reminding her of how she might get chased out of the castle. Nevertheless, she gathers some courage and decides to do it anyway in order to protect everyone like her sister, but still fails to cut his portrait. Suddenly, those two come crashing into the room on their bike, asking if she knows where their weapons are. Tsugumi mentions that Hideo said the two of them must stay locked up. This annoys Musashi, and he mentions that no one cares what that nearly expired man has to say. Tsugumi says that she doesn't have a choice, as she's weak and dumb, but gets told by Musashi that anyone who can beat Kojiro is not weak at all. Furthermore, he praises the weapons she uses, saying that she's really something else. This results in Tsugumi agreeing to show them their swords, only if they help her out with something as well. They then notice everyone gathered near the gates, and Tsugumi suggests destroying it so they all can escape. Kojiro lets her know that the Kishin might attack them this way, only to be told by Tsugumi that a driver like him should keep his mouth shut. Musashi then intervenes, telling Tsugumi that she can always rely on Kojiro. Nevertheless, knowing that they need to protect the townsfolk, an idea pops into Kojiro's mind. Elsewhere, Hideo gives a speech to the townsfolk, telling them that they need to bring their full strength in order to fight the demons. For that, the demon needs to be delayed. And this is where the townsfolk come in. Upon hearing this, everyone starts panicking as they have never done such a thing before. When one of them tries running away, he gets stopped by the Bushi guarding the door. Just then, a smoke grenade lands in the fire, creating a smoke screen around the area. At the same time, Tsugumi makes an appearance, telling Hideo that total mobilization is out of the question. She further says that sending non-combatants into battle would shame any true Bushi. When he argues by saying that the Bushi band exists to battle demons, Tsugumi says that it's idiotic to face that demon head-on, and suggests taking cover until it passes. This makes Hideo mention that Tsugumi was never such a smooth talker, and wonder if this is some kind of scheme. Knowing that he saw through her, Tsugumi begins to freak out, only to be told by Musashi that it's too late, as they already took care of the Bushi guarding the gate. Now that the path is clear, Tsugumi steps down and advises the townsfolk to run, only to realize that they are too scared to comply. Having no other choice, she finally summons some courage and decides to battle Hideo on her own. Before the fight even started, bushes started capturing the townsfolk. Luckily, Musashi starts dealing with them, telling Tsugumi to focus on her battle. With that being said, Tsugumi goes for Hideo's head but fails to land a single strike. Eventually, she gets overpowered by Hideo and is pinned to the ground. But when she tries making a move, Hideo grabs her leg and slams her onto the ground. Unable to get up, she gets beaten up by Hideo, who continues to kick her to his heart's content. After that, he grabs Tsugumi by her collar, ready to punch her when, unexpectedly, she spits blood on his face, causing him to let go. She then gets back up and tells Hideo that she is done listening to him and is going to fight no matter how weak she is. With that being said, she unleashes her powers and charges Hideo while dodging his attacks. This fight makes her realize that she only obeyed Hideo to maintain a place she can belong to, and lets the townsfolk know that they are deemed to lose everything if they keep following this man. Hideo calls her a traitor and fires some more attacks, but after dodging them, Tsugumi releases her ropes and, after tying Hideo up, smashes him on the ground. While he's tied up like the dog he is, everyone runs away for their lives, and Hideo, who witnesses this, can't do much but yell at them not to defy their lord. Once everyone has retreated to a safe spot, they tell Tsugumi to get away as well. However, she is still present at the castle, knowing that even if she runs away, she won't make it in time. The thought of death starts scaring her, and she begins wishing to live a bit longer. Eventually, that demon comes face to face with Tsugumi, and in the nick of time, Musashi shows up on the bike and rescues Tsugumi. The next morning, Musashi and Kojiro take a walk around the wreckage, discussing how the entire castle has been destroyed. But at the same time, the people look much happier compared to the time when Hideo was in charge. Suddenly, they get approached by some old hags, asking them to take Tsugumi away from the castle. After hearing about it, Tsugumi straight up refuses to leave, making Musashi question why they are kicking her out. One of the grannies informs him that she needs to escape Hideo because he has fallen apart after being betrayed by his people, and has become even more fixated on her. If the two of them reunite, Hideo might try to manipulate her again. When Tsugumi reassures her that she won't listen to him anymore, the granny asks if she's sure about that, causing her to shiver in fear. She once again tells Tsugumi that she will be haunted by Hideo as long as she stays. Although Tsugumi agrees with the granny, she doesn't want to leave the place she grew up in and the memories she has with her sister. Seeing her reaction, the townsfolk make up their mind to protect Tsugumi from Hideo, but instead of agreeing to stay, she decides to leave the castle. After that, Tsugumi asks if it's okay for her to join the two of them, to which Musashi agrees. That night, she sits on the roof, crying, when Musashi appears and advises her to go to bed. Moreover, he questions the reason she decided to leave the castle, and gets told by Tsugumi that it's better for everyone this way. If she fails to stand up against him and becomes his puppet again, she might end up hurting the townsfolk instead of protecting them. Musashi understands her feelings since it's hard for anyone to let go of their parents, to which Tsugumi replies by saying that he's not even her actual dad, which makes the situation even weirder. But Musashi disagrees, telling her that it's only natural to rely on an adult after her parents are gone. He further says that he thought of Kojiro's father as his own, because he's the reason Musashi has a dream to follow. This reminds Tsugumi of her dream of wanting to become a Bushi like her sister, and she makes up her mind to become stronger than she currently is. The following morning, the three of them prepare to leave and are seen off by the whole town, which ends up bringing tears to Tsugumi's eyes. Nevertheless, Kojiro then questions Musashi regarding their next destination, and after looking through the crystal, he suggests going to slay the Blue Kishin up ahead. Tsugumi mentions that there's no point in slaying a demon when there's no one to praise her for it, and when Musashi says that he will be the one to praise her, he gets slapped in the face. Later that day, Musashi finds Tsugumi sitting next to him, pressing her yoga balls against him. He's scared that Kojiro might get the wrong idea seeing this, and to avoid that, Musashi tries stopping her, which backfires as Tsugumi ends up undressing instead. Shocked by what just happened, Musashi looks at Kojiro, who seems to be just as shocked as he is. Knowing that this misunderstanding can only cost them their 10-year-old friendship, Musashi believes that the only way to fix it is by revealing his embarrassing secret, which is his interest in older women. Apparently, the students at mining school were subjected to a strict lifestyle, and anyone caught with girls from the town would get expelled. This resulted in the students developing an attachment to mommies and crushing on their teachers. But since he can't just say that, he has to clear this up with Kojiro while rejecting Tsugumi without hurting her. Meanwhile, Kojiro thinks of how he has been friends with Musashi for 10 years and would gladly give him his blessing if he found a girl he loves. But this situation doesn't sit right with Kojiro, and the only way to get Musashi to understand is by revealing his most embarrassing secret. Turns out Kojiro is a virgin among virgins, which is understandable since he was a Bushi who was mocked by everyone in town. He also believes that Musashi was a playboy and would have had his choice of women. Not wanting to get embarrassed, they both start panicking until Tsugumi comes up to them and requests to become friends. Confused, Musashi mentions that he thought they already were friends and asks the reason she was ignoring Kojiro. Tsugumi replies by saying that she thought he was mad at her for calling him the driver earlier. Lastly, he asks why she started stripping, and gets told by Tsugumi that it was her sister's advice to take off her clothes when she's unsure of what to do. Seeing her getting embarrassed, both the boys completely understand what she's going through. Early next morning, Musashi witnesses a demon trying to steal Kojiro's sword, and he ends up running after him. With that metal pole in hand, he tries striking it down, only to break the pole instead. Eventually, the demon stops at a place filled with swords, and before Musashi could comprehend what was going on, he noticed a guy standing nearby. He allows Musashi to borrow one of his swords as the demon is about to devour his own. Without thinking much, Musashi grabs a sword, and out of nowhere, an insane amount of power starts emerging, forming crystals all over his body. At last, the crystals break and the energy transfers to the sword. Using that, he sends an attack towards the demon, breaking his throne in one go and defeating it flawlessly. That guy then praises him, asking if it's Musashi's first time using a Kitetsu blade. Musashi then absorbs the Kitetsu from eliminating the demon, but after that, his sword breaks in half. However, that guy couldn't care less and is more focused on how Musashi was able to draw this much power from the sword. Their conversation gets interrupted when his comrade appears and sees him talking about swords in such a lewd way. She apologizes to Musashi for her pervy master. With that, the two of them decide to leave, and when Musashi asked for their names, that guy calls himself a dog for hire without a name worth sharing. Just then, Kojiro and Tsugumi arrive but fail to believe Musashi when he tells them about it, since all the swords have now disappeared. Nevertheless, they continue their journey, and hearing Musashi talk about the Kitetsu blade makes Tsugami advise him to buy one. She further mentions that her weapon is also made from Kitetsu, as the horn on demons can only be cut by Kitetsu blades. Following that, she takes them to a place filled with merchants selling stuff to bushes, including Kitetsu blades as well. Musashi gets excited upon seeing that the place is filled with Bushi, and is informed by Tsugumi that Bushi bands use Kitetsu as their currency. With that, Musashi starts looking for the blades but finds out that the blade auctions are saved for last. While waiting, they decide to enjoy some ramen and get approached by a person who asks for their band name. But after realizing that they don't have a name yet, he starts laughing and asks Tsugumi to ditch the losers and join him instead. After Musashi sends him away, Tsugumi questions why they are so hung up on hunting demons, to which Musashi replies by saying that their dream has always been to become Bushi and form the strongest band ever. However, Tsugumi doesn't understand these dreams whatsoever, as the only wish she has is to return home. Nonetheless, she then asks about who between the two is going to be the band leader, as if that's not settled, she wouldn't know whom she's supposed to listen to. Without giving it much thought, Musashi suggests that Kojiro become the captain and adds the fact that he doesn't have a family name. The other bands have their names based on the captain's last name, and that's why Kojiro is the best choice. This comes as a surprise to Kojiro, as he didn't expect someone as competitive as Musashi to give in so easily, to which Musashi replies by saying that he's fine as long as they get to follow their dream together. Eventually, the time for the Kitetsu blade auction arrives, and seeing that there are so many of them, Musashi wonders which one he should pick. Just then, a fine wine baddie interrupts, telling Musashi to pick whichever he feels is right since blades and bushes are drawn to each other. One look at her, and Musashi falls head over heels for that woman, who introduces herself as Mitsuru, the head of the Ryuzoji band Smiths. His behavior pisses Tsugumi off as he didn't react at all when she offered a sneak peek of her planets. When Mitsuru finds out that it's their first time picking a Kitetsu blade, she calls this moment very important, as it's when a person comes into their own as a Bushi. Once the auction officially commences, Kojiro starts by looking at different options while Musashi goes straight for the red one. Kojiro eventually finds one that has been left alone and decides to go for it. After they have picked their blades, they get told by Mitsuru to grab the hilt. As soon as Musashi touches the blade, an intense amount of energy starts flowing through his body. Mitsuru calls this the sword's trail, saying that it's a ritual where the blade chooses its master. Upon hearing that, Kojiro decides to get started and grabs his sword, causing his pulse to quicken and all his memories to flash before his eyes. Lastly, the sword lights up along with glowing stones emerging from Kojiro's body. With that, his sword trail ends, and he succeeds. Tsugumi mentions that the sword has chosen him as its master, and gets informed by Kojiro that it now feels like the sword is a part of his body. Before long, the others start to succeed as well, but the glowing colors around them seem to be different. Mitsuru explains by saying that a Bushi's soul has colors to it, and depending on the colors, a Bushi can use different powers. Kojiro's color is blue, which is pretty common among Bushi, and the rarest color among them is red. In the meantime, Musashi, who is still undergoing the trial, finds himself in a memory of his childhood where Kojiro's father is getting more stretched than an adult star's legs on rent day. At that moment, he tries to say something to Musashi, but before he could understand what he meant, the memory fades, leaving him in a dark place. Soon after, a completely bare-skinned iron board turns up in front of Musashi and gives him a hug. But just as Musashi starts enjoying it, she transforms into a monstrosity and tells Musashi that she doesn't need him. Following that, a black color surrounds Musashi's body, and with that, the trail comes to an end. Knowing that he failed the trial, Musashi decides to give it another go. Sadly, no matter how many swords he tries it with, he fails each and every single time. Ultimately, Mitsuru lets him know that those with black color are said to be rejected by all Kitetsu blades. One can never change the color of their soul and has to accept whatever color they are given. Since Musashi's color is black, this means he can never use a Kitetsu blade. The next morning, Musashi realizes that he might never be able to hunt demons, and that his dream could come to an end. Following that, Kojiro and Tsugumi come to console him, but their conversation gets interrupted by the appearance of demons. Turns out a Kishin has appeared and is sending lesser demons to create havoc. Seeing that demon in front of him, Musashi starts getting scared as he knows the truth about his powers this time. Just when the demon's about to attack Musashi, Kojiro appears to protect him and releases the true powers of his sword. Elsewhere, a demon chases a mother-daughter duo until Kojiro intervenes and slashes the demon in half, saving their lives. Overjoyed, they both thank Kojiro for saving them, which is something new for him, as this never happened once back home. While everyone fights the demons, Musashi can't help but watch from the sidelines. After the battle comes to an end, Kojiro gets praised by Mitsuru and her band. Musashi is glad to see how happy Kojiro is, and at the same time, he is fully aware that he might be left behind. Now it's time to slay the Kishin, and Kojiro tries calling Musashi, but gets told to go without him. When everyone leaves, Musashi gets frustrated thinking about how he has to find some way to fight. Suddenly, he remembers the sword he used this morning, which allowed him to use powers. As he's busy thinking about that, the guy from before appears and mentions that the two of them are the same while showing off his black-colored crystals. Musashi recognizes him as the same guy who lent him a Kitetsu blade this morning. He then begins crying, talking about how happy he is to find him. Confused, Musashi wonders what he's talking about and gets told that he's actually talking to the one inside of him, or in other words, the Black Stones. That guy named Shirou then continues by saying that he was the same as Musashi, and was left in the dust by people who shared the same dream as him, because he couldn't fight on his own. When he asks if Musashi wishes to grow stronger and catch up to the others, he agrees, questioning about the way for him to get stronger. Shirou mentions that all he needs to do is accept the Black Stones, and when the haze comes over him during the trial, it's better to surrender himself. Curious, Musashi asks about how strong he can become this way, prompting Shirou to take out his sword and create a giant cube using it. After that, he cuts the cube into pieces, leaving behind a deep pit. With that, Shirou gives him the red sword and tells him to take the sword's trail so he can finally become a Kitetsu blade. Puzzled, Musashi questions what he means and gets told by Shirou that he is going to become a Kitetsu blade, reminding him of how strong one of these blades is. When Musashi tries arguing with him, Shirou mentions that Musashi wants to become the strongest, so it doesn't make a difference whether he's a person or a sword. As expected, Musashi straight up refuses, saying that he won't be able to fight alongside Kojiro and Tsugumi this way. However, Shirou comes up with a solution for that as well, suggesting they turn his friends into material for the sword so the three of them can stay together. Annoyed, Musashi charges him, but Shirou gets out of the way and pushes Musashi inside the pit, later throwing the red sword inside as well. Meanwhile, Tsugumi catches up to Kojiro, asking why he's so fired up about this and whether it was a good idea to leave Musashi behind. Kojiro replies by telling her that it's fine, since there's nothing they can do for him either way. With that being said, he decides to head towards the Kishin and wait for Musashi to get back on his feet. That said, Tsugumi is a bit concerned about whether Musashi will be able to, as people with black souls can never use Kitetsu blades. Thinking about how rare it is makes her wonder who Musashi really is. Moreover, she has started to believe that Musashi could have inherited an amazing power and wants Kojiro to tell her the details. Having no other choice, he starts the story with quite some suspense, only to reveal that he came from an ordinary family of farmers. Frustrated, she asks if he's messing with her, but Kojiro reassures her that it's the truth. He further explains that he came from the family of Bushi, which meant he had to keep his distance from everyone. But Musashi was a weird kid who approached him and treated Kojiro like any other person. Having a real friend made Kojiro happier than he could have imagined, and thanks to Musashi, his life wasn't a total nightmare. Upon hearing this, Tsugumi questions why Musashi didn't hate him when the whole town did. Kojiro believes that it's because of his parents, because just like him, they were pretty odd as well, and treated Kojiro and his father with respect. Elsewhere, Shirou's assistant, Nanao, returns with a wild chicken for lunch, and gets informed about how Musashi was thrown in the pit. This disappoints her a bit since he's the only one who was kind to her. Nanao then calls Shirou a deranged knucklehead who is only earnest about Kitetsu blades. Now, he has found his goddess inside of Musashi, the Obsidian Goddess he has been searching for ages. On the other hand, Musashi has been falling for some time and decides not to back down without a fight. Luckily, he notices the red sword and, after grabbing it, he sticks it to the pit walls, allowing himself to slow down. But just like before, black crystals start to emerge from his body, leaving Musashi with the choice to let go of his sword and fall into the molten lava, or submit himself and turn into a sword. After almost passing out, Musashi forcefully wakes himself up and tries climbing the wall using the black stones. Suddenly, the voice inside of him speaks, saying that she can't allow that. Following that, the stones envelop his body, causing Musashi to fall into the lava. Once again, Musashi finds himself standing in front of that girl, and when he tries getting out, the girl mentions that he will only get in the way of his friends. However, when he still refuses to listen, she turns into that monstrosity again, telling Musashi that this has happened before. Following that, he wakes up in one of his childhood memories, right after his parents had passed away. No one wanted to take in the son of a blasphemous couple, and many relatives refused to take responsibility until one of them agreed, only if he stayed low and drew as little attention as possible. At first, Musashi agreed, and then questioned what was so bad about being friends with Kojiro and his father. This prompted one of his relatives to hit him on the face, making Musashi realize that it's better not to talk about Kojiro in front of others. Nonetheless, he started staying with them, and one day, he noticed that his uncle had left lunch at home. Without thinking much, he ran to the fields to give lunch to his uncle. This resulted in his uncle getting mocked by others for taking care of Musashi, causing his relatives to kick Musashi out of their house. Having nowhere else to go, Musashi roamed around the streets, thinking how his current situation is no different from being dead. Knowing that Kojiro and his father cared for him, he started to want to meet them until, unexpectedly, a woman came up to Musashi, telling him to throw a rock at Kojiro's father, who was walking down the street, claiming that Musashi could be useful this way. He came under the pressure of everyone ordering him to do it until he eventually threw the rock at Kojiro's father. Back in the present, the goddess tells Musashi that he threw that rock because he was willing to do whatever it took to feel wanted. This makes her question if his wish to become a Bushi is genuine, or if it is just an excuse to be with his friends. Lastly, she says that becoming a Bushi is no different to him than the rock he threw that day, which is why someone like him would never be able to use a kaitetsu blade. If Musashi were to go out and fight, the goddess can be captured as well, which is why she suggests staying together, hidden, and not getting involved in the war between Bushi and demons. Simultaneously, Kojiro and the others make it to the Kishin, only to witness it lying on the ground with its head missing. Tsugumi believes that it's still alive because when demons die, they are turned into kaitetsu, and since this one hasn't, its horn must still be intact. Nevertheless, Kojiro decides to look for the Kishin's weakness for Musashi when he returns, unaware that his boy has turned into crystallized coke. Suddenly, Shirou appears above the Kishin's body, claiming to be the one who defeated the Kishin. He then steps down and walks towards Kojiro, but gets stopped by others. When one of the Bushis orders Shirou to tell him where the head is so they can take the elimination for their band, he, along with all his comrades, gets slashed in half by Shirou. He then states his mission, which is to steal their kaitetsu blades. Upon hearing this, the Bushi recognizes Shirou as one of those sword hunters and delivers a collaborative attack on him. But without doing much work, he easily cuts through their attacks, dealing with most of the Bushis at once. Seeing this, everyone understands that he is no ordinary sword hunter, and Tsugumi accidentally calls out Kojiro's name, making Shirou realize that he's Musashi's friend. This prompts Shirou to walk towards Kojiro, letting him know that Musashi has already become a kaitetsu blade and is now waiting for him, suggesting he do the same to him. Meanwhile, Musashi is told by the goddess that he has turned into black stone, so he can hide and stay here forever. Just then, she notices a green crystal heading toward them and realizes it's already over as they're about to be caught. That green crystal wraps around the black stone and pulls Musashi out. Once outside, he manages to get out of the black stone and is approached by Nanao, who's surprised to see him still alive. Turns out reeling him out was a mistake because Nanao pulled him out of the pit before he completely turned into black stone. This reminds Musashi that Shirou went after his friends and ran to save them without wasting a second. Along the way, he remembers the goddess saying that becoming a Bushi is an excuse for him to be with his friends, and thinks that being a Bushi means more than that to him. Back in the past, Musashi visited Kojiro's house and apologized for throwing the rock. His father invited Musashi inside the house and told him not to worry about what had happened, as he was in a tough position. Furthermore, he mentioned that Kojiro had been treated the same way by the entire town, just as Musashi was being treated at that time. Just when he was on the verge of breaking, Musashi appeared and saved him. Seeing that made Kojiro's father happier than anything, and just by his presence, Musashi managed to save two people's hearts at once. This was why Kojiro's pops believed that Musashi was not worthless and advised him to keep on living. Hearing these words brought Musashi to tears, and from that day onwards, he started living together with Kojiro and his father. Because Kojiro's father was a Bushi who kept Musashi's soul from dying, he now wants to follow the same path. Elsewhere, Shirou continues obliterating all the Bushis, telling them to stop running as the souls of cowards turn into dull wastes of steel. For the time being, he decides to target Musashi's friends, and seeing that he's after him, Kojiro runs the opposite way to allow the others to escape. After reaching a dead end, Kojiro is forced to take out his sword and fire an attack towards Shirou. Sure enough, Shirou remains unscathed by his attacks, and after coming close enough, he grabs Kojiro by his face, saying that the souls of the courageous are a beautiful color. With that, he is about to end Kojiro's life, but stops and lets him go after witnessing the appearance of Musashi. To start things off, he walks to Kojiro and the others, who question if he can use kaitetsu blades now. Musashi refuses, saying that he's not getting the light show, but the black crystals are not coming out either when he grabs one. Hearing this, Shirou realizes that he's neither accepted nor rejected by the blade. Before long, Nanao also returns, telling Shirou that she accidentally pulled him out too early. He decides to forgive her because things are now even more interesting, as Musashi is halfway fused with the black stone. This means if they were to attack him now, the goddess inside will issue her sentence. As the two enter battle mode, Kojiro wonders what their problem is and gets told by Musashi that they are after him. Puzzled, Tsugumi asks why he came here knowing this, to which Musashi replies by saying that he came because his friends were in trouble, reminding Kojiro of how Bushi are supposed to fight together. Still concerned, Tsugumi argues by saying that they are too strong, causing Kojiro to remind her that if they run away, someone else could get hurt in the process. Moreover, knowing that Shirou is a Bushi as well, Kojiro believes it would be lame to run away when they talk high and might about forming the strongest Bushi band. In the meantime, Nanao prepares to face them first and breaks apart her wand, making 7 blades out of it. With that, she sends all 7 blades towards them, and while blocking them, Musashi figures that he can fight her even without a kaitetsu blade since she's not a demon. However, to close the distance between Nano and himself, Musashi uses the mountain as a catapult and launches himself at her. But just as he is about to attack, Nanao defends herself with her swords, sending him crashing away. After this attempt, Musashi realizes that they can't reach Nanao because of her 7 blades and suggests dealing with the blades first. Kojiro agrees with Musashi and comes up with a plan to execute this strategy. Noticing their behavior, Nanao also figures that they are putting together some kind of scheme, and when Shirou asks if she needs help, Nanao refuses, asking him to stay put. At first, she thinks that their strategy must be to come after her at once, but that won't work since she has 7 blades, making it a 7 versus 3. But to her surprise, they split up and ran away while leaving Kojiro behind. Thinking that Kojiro must be acting as bait to let his friends escape, Nanao remembers that she can't let Musashi get away and sends her swords towards him. At first, Nanao believes that she got him, only to witness Tsugumi holding off her swords using her ropes, saving Musashi from getting overwhelmed. Using this opportunity, Musashi jumps in the air and slashes the pieces of her wand, deactivating the swords she had created. Seeing that the plan worked, Tsugumi celebrates, saying that she was able to catch the blade because none of them were directed at her. However, Nanao doesn't seem impressed as only one of the 7 swords was destroyed, but Shirou finds otherwise as he ends up stepping into the battlefield. Seeing this, the 3 of them almost turn their boxers into brownies, knowing how hard it would be to deal with both of them at once. Nanao mentions that she can fight on her own, asking Shirou to let her handle this. In reply, Shirou gives her a dead silent stare and questions why he would ever fight with someone like her. Moreover, he says that fighting alone is more his style and tells Nano to be a good girl and stay back. Having no other choice, she is forced to comply and stand there with an embarrassed look on her face. Nevertheless, Shirou decides to take them all at once and reveals his blade rings, which are halos of light that appear when a Bushi channels power into the blade. With that being said, Shirou makes a move, but surprisingly, nothing happens, making them wonder what he did just now. Before long, a giant cube surrounds the mountain top and starts moving the entire mountain, ultimately flipping it upside down. As expected, everyone on the mountain is also flipped upside down, causing most of the Bushi to fall to their deaths. Luckily, Musashi and his friends manage to hold onto their swords that are planted in the ground. Shocked, Musashi wonders if it's Shirou's doing and can't believe that a person can be capable of such things. Meanwhile, Shirou realizes that some of them are hanging by their swords, prompting him to cut the part of the ground where they have planted their swords. When Musashi gets furious over this act, Shirou asks if they were his friends as well, and wonders why he's looking for the strength he needs to slay demons and other people. According to Shirou, there's only one way to go about it, that being to become the strongest Bushi alive. He then continues by mocking Bushis for banding together like insects and figures that it must be necessary for their survival, considering how pathetically weak they are. Hearing him run his mouth, Musashi realizes that he sounds just like the flat hottie who lives inside of him. Eventually, Shirou gets bored and shakes the surface, causing everyone hanging to fall as well. At that moment, time freezes for Musashi, and that goddess makes an appearance, saying that she understands the kind of person Musashi is. When he asks if it's her doing, the goddess agrees, telling him that she's the force that draws all things together. Furthermore, she calls Shirou her enemy, explaining that they are trying to eliminate him in order to get their hands on her. Since his death could cause problems for her, she has decided to use the remaining of her powers to get him out of this situation alive. This makes Musashi ask if everyone dies, and when she agrees, he refuses her help, saying that there's no point. Confused, she tells him to elaborate and gets told by Musashi that he's a weakling who can't survive alone. But when there are a few people by his side, he feels their power and wishes to see how far they can go together. Upon hearing this, the goddess realizes that he has a knack for drawing others, which is useful as pooling strength with comrades, is the only way for humans to battle Kishins. Once she finds out that it's exactly what Musashi wants, she agrees to entrust him with her power and embraces Musashi with her mediocre body, telling him that she will fight using his body. With that, time resumes, and everyone begins falling. Suddenly, giant crystals emerge from Musashi's body and start to pull everyone's Katetsu blades towards itself. Ultimately, even Shirou loses his blade as it returns to its master, the Obsidian Goddess. With that blade in hand, she stops that technique and returns the mountain back to normal. After that, she looks at Shirou, asking if he was looking for her, and says that the feeling is not mutual. The goddess then unleashes her powers, and when Nanao tries to attack her, she begins warping her blade energy. The goddess then explains that black crystals have the power to either draw or repel blade energy, and due to their complexity, it leaves people unable to use Katetsu blades. Eventually, Shirou manages to get back his blade while the goddess realizes that taking action in the real world depletes her power quickly. And if she sleeps now, Musashi will lose the obsidian powers. This is why he needs to rely on his friends, and when she asks if they will join him in this battle, Kojiro instantly agrees. Following that, the goddess reveals her true self, seeing which Shirou invites her to stay with him, promising to make her happier. However, she tells him to piss off and decides to chase them off before returning to sleep. To make this happen, she once again borrows powers from other bushes by attracting their blade energy. While doing so, the goddess mocks Shirou for calling them insects and lets him know that the brilliance of a single blade, combined with others, turns into a huge deal. And using a similar technique, she will be getting rid of him. Nanao gets a bit shocked seeing her draw energy from every blade, and Shirou agrees, saying that her goddess is the real deal. However, the goddess mentions that she will never be his and says her goodbyes. In the nick of time, Shirou creates an escape for them, managing to get away before the extraordinary attack dealt by the goddess. Her attack chops several mountains in half, and seeing that the enemy is gone, everyone starts to celebrate, thanking Musashi for saving them. At the same time, Musashi returns to his original form and still feels the adrenaline coursing through him. Moreover, he calls the goddess an incredible entity as because of her, they manage to survive. After that, the two of them come running towards Musashi, calling him crazy strong and praising his attack. But when Musashi lets them know that it wasn't him, Kojiro says that he seemed like a different person, while Sugumi wonders if he was possessed by an evil spirit. Hearing this, Kojiro tells her not to talk about her like that, since the goddess was super nice. This makes Sugumi wonder if he's the type to fall for any girl who's a little nice to him, and mocks him for not learning his lesson even after she beat him the first time. While they are busy fighting, Musashi thinks about what the goddess told him about Kojiro's father and how he was eliminated before finishing what he started. Afterward, Musashi examines the sword, which breaks in half, prompting Mitsuru to inform him that a blade shatters if it channels more power than it can contain. In other words, the sword breaking is a sign of his potential. Mitsuru then thanks him for saving them and asks for a reward he might like as thanks. Simultaneously, some of the Bushi notice a giant hole where the Kishin's body was present. It turns out Shirou has teleported that entire block of ground to a different location along with Kishin's body. Nanao is glad that they were able to escape that attack, and Shirou adds by saying that the goddess won't be getting away next time. Later that day, a funeral was held for all the Bushi who got skill issued. The survivors pay their respect by bowing in front of the deceased Bushi's swords, including a crying child who has just lost his father. This scenario helps Kojiro understand that no one wants to leave their sword behind, to which Sugumi agrees, telling him that they are special because the feelings of their wielders linger inside of them. Some people treat these swords like the symbol of a Bushi's life, reminding Kojiro of something similar said by his father. However, Sugumi doesn't think the same way because although the weapon she uses belongs to her sister, they are just objects, not something that can replace her. That night, they are blessed with a room to stay the night thanks to Mitsuru. She calls it a gift for saving their lives and is about to leave, but gets stopped by Musashi, who has a favor to ask. The following day, a ceremony is held where Musashi will be taking another sword trial in front of a whole crowd. People gathered around started to wonder if it's going to work this time, but Kojiro knows that the goddess has returned to her slumber, which means that Musashi is not going to have that dark glow again. Furthermore, Musashi seems to be going for the same red sword that led to his failure the first time, but they don't have a choice, as it's the best blade they have on hand at the moment. With that being said, Mitsuru explains the rules, and before he gets started, Musashi reminds Togumi of what she said about swords symbolizing a Bushi's life, letting her know that he doesn't know what to believe either. His statement doesn't sit right with the crowd present, but they stay silent, and Musashi continues by saying that Kojiro's father cared about the Bushi way of life, which made him curious about it as well. He believes that while the dead are gone forever, the things they cherished are still going to be cherished by their loved ones, which, in other words, symbolizes that they were once alive. After this little yapping session, Musashi picks up the sword, and this time, a red glow surrounds him. Seeing this happen, everyone gets excited, and just like that, Musashi finally passes the sword trial. Before Kojiro gets a chance to congratulate him, several other Bushis end up surrounding Musashi, praising Musashi. This annoys Kojiro a bit as everyone ignored him like orphans ignore Father's Day when he passed the trial. Sugumi reminds Kojiro that his color was blue while Musashi's color is red. Blue is a normal color that about half of the Bushi are born with, but red is something that only a few lucky ones get. After it's all over, Musashi comes up to Kojiro, wanting to talk to him about something. He takes Kojiro to a secluded place and asks if he saw his past memories during the trial. However, he doesn't seem to remember since everything happened so fast. Musashi then informs Kojiro that he saw his dad, which makes him believe that the two of them might have known each other. This puzzles Kojiro a bit as his father never mentioned anything about a hot goddess and only left the scroll and a sword behind. Thinking about it a bit more, they realize that Kojiro's father had the Bushi's bike when no one else in town did, which makes Kojiro wonder if he had connections to Bushi outside of town. Elsewhere, Nanao reminds Shirou that their target was originally Kojiro's father. But now that the goddess is living in Musashi's body, Shirou assumes that the goddess had picked a different vessel for some reason. Later on, Kojiro contemplates his misunderstanding that his father lived in the hometown all his life. He regrets not asking him enough questions, but now that the Bushi world is in front of him, Kojiro believes that he might be able to figure something out if he walks the same path as his father. Eventually, it's time for them to leave, and the two of them are waiting for Kojiro's return. Soon after, he turns up, saying that he was gathering supplies and hands them a map he found. This finally gives them a sense of direction, and when Musashi wonders where they should be headed next, Kojiro takes a look and mentions that if they head west, they would return to their hometown, so heading east is the best choice. After traveling for a while, they arrive in a forest where Kojiro mentions that they could be lost. Upon learning this, Tsugumi mocks Kojiro by telling him to get it together and complains how dark and dirty the place is. The two of them then start arguing, telling each other to drive the bike. Eventually, Musashi intervenes, asking them to let him drive the bike for once. With that, he begins figuring out the controls while the two in the back start scheming to spook him when he's not paying attention. Musashi, who can hear their conversation, is glad that they have settled down and tells them to let go of the bike, only to realize that they are not actually the ones pushing the bike. To his surprise, it turns out to be a giant demon who has trapped not only the two of them, but a third person as well. Since he's not helpless against them anymore, Musashi whips out his sword, and after locating the demon's horn, he dashes towards it. After managing to dodge the initial attacks, Musashi attacks back and breaks the horn in one go, allowing him to save all three of them. After a quick aura farming pose, Musashi goes to check up on his friends, who manage to free themselves from its body. He then checks on the third person, and even after calling out to them, he gets no response. This leaves him no choice but to tear open the demon's body himself, revealing a sleeping beauty inside. Seeing that it's a girl, Musashi gets some funny ideas, but before he gets the chance, that girl wakes up. The first thing she notices is the blood on Musashi's face, and he lets her know that he was hurt while saving her. Realizing that he's the person who saved her, the girl lets out a smile and thanks Musashi for the help. Seeing her gentle expression makes Kojiro down bad for her, while Musashi is relieved to find out that he finds girls his age cute as well. Their conversation gets interrupted when a packet-sized short comes running, calling that girl a princess. He gives her a new set of clothes and gets told by the princess that she was saved by Musashi. After that, she tells that guy to ask for their names, to which Tsugumi replies by saying that she should give hers first. He admits his rude behavior and introduces her as the daughter of Lord Nobumitsu, Michiru. Furthermore, he mentions that they are heading to the port of Harima, where a battle to decide the fate of the nation will take place. After that, the three of them are given a ride on the princess's Kitetsu mount, and during the ride, Musashi notices that Michiru seems like a totally different person now, making him wonder if she's upset. The others keep talking to Musashi normally as well, not noticing the princess's odd behavior. Eventually, he decides to find a way to break the ice, and starts by telling Michiru how glad he is to be given a map of the forest. But before she could reply, Musashi was interrupted by Tsugumi, asking about the blacked-out part on the map. He then asks about Michiru's hometown, and this time, the shorty ends up answering him instead of the princess. He mentions that Lord Uesugi has called for a gathering of the Uesugi alliance to slay a Kishin. Once again, Musashi asks for Michiru's fighting style, only to get interrupted again by Tsugumi, who explains that the Uesugi alliance is a group of friendly Bushi bands. Ultimately, Musashi loses his cool and yells at them for not letting him talk to Michiru. Realizing that he remembers her name, the princess gets surprised, but before they could continue the conversation, the shorty warns about the upcoming bumpy trail. One of these bumps causes Michiru to fall off the vehicle, and Musashi jumps after her with a second thought. But after realizing that he can't fly, Musashi starts to panic until Michiru takes out her blade and, using her powers, creates an umbrella to slow down their landing. This prompts Musashi to praise her powers, reminding Michiru of her father, who used to praise her the same way. She then apologizes for her rude behavior before and admits the fact that she's an introvert. Since it's usually just her and that Smurf, she gets nervous when other people appear out of nowhere. Hearing this, Musashi bursts out laughing, and is glad that she wasn't mad at them. After that, Musashi informs her of their plan to head east, and gets told by Michiru that he won't be able to go far. When Musashi asks about the reason, she reminds him of the blacked-out part of the map and tells him to look towards the east. There, he sees a giant black wall covering the sky, and Michiru explains that it's a Kishin. After taking a closer look, Musashi realizes that it's moving and takes down everything in its path. Apparently, it was the first demon to appear in Hinamoto over 150 years ago. At the start, only one demon appeared out of nowhere and used an extremely powerful attack, eliminating every human present nearby. After that, Hinamoto was split into two, between those who decided to fight these demons and those who decided to worship them instead. The worshippers went to harvest ores and offered them to the Kishin. The more ore it consumed, the bigger that black wall became until it covered over half of Hinamoto. It is now named the Black Kishin, and defeating it has been a dream of Bushi's for the past 150 years. Considering its growth, the Kishin can swallow all of Hinamoto if nothing is done to stop it. However, the shorty is confident that the leader named Uesugi will be the one to slay it, as he's ranked among the nation's strongest Bushi. Lastly, he advises the three of them to join the fight and go their separate way. Once the three of them are left alone, they decide to check the scroll and are told by Tsugumi that every Bushi band has a scroll, which means Kojiro's father must be part of one. She then starts searching for the scroll's seal and finds out that it has the seal of the Lord of Uesugi, which means his dad belonged to the Uesugi band. Elsewhere at the port, many bands that are a part of the Uesugi alliance have arrived. There, a creepy-looking man sits on a roof thinking about the Obsidian Goddess, who was recently spotted. On the other hand, Nanao buys some snacks for Shirou and wonders if she should have gone for Katetsu blades as a gift instead. Suddenly, she begins feeling something strange in her heart, and after getting to a secluded space, Nanao lets the black crystals emerge from her body, which allows her to enter a secret meeting. It's a meeting among the group members of Obsidian 8 who first ask Nanao about the goddess and tell her to keep the goddess out of Bushi's hands. Furthermore, one of the members reminds everyone of their duty to ensure the survival of Kishin so they can live alongside them. Since the retrieval of the goddess is crucial for that, they decide to send someone who can approach Musashi in secret. Meanwhile, Musashi and the others have decided to head to the port as well, and when Kojiro asks if they don't mind his selfish request, they agree, saying that it's natural for him to want to know more about his family. Before long, they arrive close enough to the port and lay their eyes on the ocean for the first time in their lives. Do you think they will join the battle to slay the Black Kishin? Comment Demon if you watch to the end. As usual, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.